The Satanic Panic was a unique product of the 1980s. So if we just put it through the geopolitical context, America had just come from the losing Vietnam. They had just come from the whole impeachment of Nixon. And Ronald Reagan was elected on basically returning America to its core family values. I want you to think, what was the great show in the 1980s during prime time? It was the nuclear family, The Cosby Show. And during this context, during a context where the Soviet Union was an evil empire, it's not a surprise that the Satanic Panic occurred. And the greatest way that this meme went viral was due to a TV series that we owe to Geraldo Rivera that over-sensationalized the Satanic Panic. The key to remember there was it was a conflation of the antithesis of what America was supposed to be in the 1980s. And so that's how you have to understand that everything with the Satanic Panic was really the culmination of the American reaction to the 1960s counterculture. This is what I see, that it all represented. Remember, the counterculture gave birth to the conservative Christian counter-reaction, but really it was the presidency of Ronald Reagan that put that trend into power. And you're going to watch Drag Me to Hell, a film that came out in 2009, conveniently 1 year during the banking crisis. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. I'm not sure if the director Sam Raimi anticipated the banking crisis, but it's a film for its times. I am going to talk about the occult nature of this film. And to begin with, the antagonist of this film is a supernatural being known as the lamia. The lamia is based on a historical precedent. The lamia was the closest the connection I could make is it was a succubus in ancient Greek culture. But I believe, as somebody who works on the history of ancient Iraq, it comes from the demonic figure known as Lamashtu. Lamashtu was a Sumerian succubus that later transformed in the Judaic culture as Lilith. Now, in Lilith carried over into our traditions, Lilith was the one who was responsible for sudden infant deaths. And you would sing Lilith away in a song otherwise known as a Lilithby, that today is rendered as a lullaby. That's the Lamashtu Lilith Lamia figure. They played a bit on the features of the demon, changing it a bit from a succubus just to more to somebody who opens up the gateways of hell. That's the historical references to the supernatural being. Next is, I'm going to give this away. This film is a over-racialized depiction of the Roma, otherwise known as the Gypsies. So it plays on some of the worst stereotypes of Gypsies and curses. But nevertheless, when you have these kind of stereotypes, I like to remind people that there is a whole population in the Balkans who are known as the Vlachs. And both the Vlachs, who are what today we would call Romanians, not related to the Roma, and the so-called Gypsies, do have a rich culture of the precursor of the vampire legend, think Romania, that we owe to the Vlachs. But I would say ancient Mesopotamia and the Vlachs give us a rich folklore of demons. So I could say the combination, I could find werewolves in the Vlach and ancient Sumerian cultures, that is the Iraqi cultures. The ghoul is an Arabic word, the so-called precursor to the zombie. You could find these all in Vlach and Mesopotamian culture. And finally, the third reference is you'll see the goat in this film. Without giving it away, a lot of times demonic figures look like a goat. And I just found this. This is a tarot set. And if you notice the satanic figure that looks like a goat, you'll see it in kind of current depictions of Satan, hence the satanic craze, as well as in this film. And I want you to realize why the goat from all the animals. And it has to do with this. Think of the ancient Greek figure Pan. who was the inverted of the goat, had the bottom of the goat, still the hooves, but some of these features, but not necessarily something that was menacing or demonic. Pan was a figure associated with drinking and free sex. Everything that was anathema to conservative Christian beliefs that were developing this time in ancient Greece. And so here you see the continuum. So associating everything with Pan, with the devil, this evil entity soon takes on figures of a goat. And without giving anything away in the film, you'll see what I'm referring to. But I also want you to think of the goat and the term scapegoat. These aren't accidents. And then the final reference to the film is, this is a film about the supernatural versus the irrational. And that's represented by the boyfriend of the protagonist, who's a psychologist. And when they approach an expert in the occult, he quotes the psychologist Carl Jung, saying there's a world out there beyond the intellect. And the psychologist immediately dismisses that Jung quote, even though they're both from the same field. Any reference to Jung is basically a reference to the psychologist who gave us the notions of collective consciousness, archetypes, and of course I highly recommend all of you to look at his alchemical supernatural treatise known as the Red Book. So he makes a cameo in this film, and otherwise this is a great dark comedy made for that time where our financial futures were very precarious. Enjoy Drag Me to Hell, something I think all of you would wish for those guys on Wall Street, but I won't say anymore. Those are the ones who should be dragged to hell. Enjoy the film.